We are in Yakov, and there's Gemara Shabbos 13a4. We're looking at a related it says for related incident, right? Okay, so this is Tanei de Eliyahu. The following Braita was taught in the academy of Eliyahu. And we're not talking about Eliyahu Hanavi, we're talking about, there's a person called Eliyahu. It happened that there was a student, Shoshana Harbe, who learned much Mishnah, Vikara Harbe, and learned much Torah, Veshimesh B'Talmidei Chachamim Harbe, and also spent much time serving Torah scholars. So far he's doing everything he should be doing. Okay, if you look at 31 through 32 down here, says Be'er Sheva insists that this is not referred to Elijah the prophet, but rather to a Tana by the name of Eliyahu. You have others present the refutation of Be'er Sheva's explanation and insist that the reference is a collection of Braitot that the prophet Elijah taught after his ascent to heaven to an Amora called Rav Anan. So you have an argument as to, is this Eliyahu Hanavi? Is it not Eliyahu Hanavi? And not that it really is going to make an impact on the story, but it's just an interesting argument that they're having. Then he says, what does it mean, serving? It means referring to learning from a Torah scholar the meaning and the underlying reasons of the Mishnah. That's what it means to serve the Torah scholar. This is a discipline called Talmud. Now, it's understanding the hidden reasons, the underlying reasons. Mishnah would be the halacha. Now, the Talmud or Gemara would be understanding how the law came into being. You understand? The Torah says one thing, we rule. Torah says you can't put a stumbling block in front of a blind man, for instance. Okay, so simply stated, it means I cannot put a block in front of a blind man, so he's going to trip. But we also interpret that to mean that you can't morally trip somebody up. Okay, so if you don't know something's wrong and I'm telling you, oh, it's right, morally I've tripped you up. Or if I give you bad advice, I know it's bad advice, but I give it to you and I say, you got to buy this particular thing, and you do it, again, that's putting a stumbling block in front of a blind man. Well, how do I know that? Okay, the Torah simply said, don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind man, which is very simple. I've suddenly come up with this extravagant explanation where you look at me and say, Rabbi, why would you do that? The Torah says what it says, leave me alone. There's no prohibition against me giving you bad advice. Okay, so now I have to prove that. That is Talmud. That is using all these sources, telling you the underlying reasons for the particular commandments that there is. Now that was obviously given to us by Hashem at Har Sinai, but nonetheless, we have to be taught that. Because we're only given the headline, if you will, but we're not given the total story in the Torah. Otherwise, the Torah would just be, instead of, let's say, 1,000 pages, it would be as long as the sea. It would be a never-ending book. So anyways, that's what it means. He served Talmidei Chacham. He learned many years, read a lot of Torah. And what happens? You would think this guy, what do we say in Torah? We say, in davening every day, we say, Ki heim chayenu v'yorachemenu. They are the life of They are the life of our days, and so on and so forth. They give us life. This is the tree for those a tree of life for those who grab hold to it. So you would think that somebody who is learning so much, reading so much Torah, and serving Talmidei Chacham, learning how it works, you would think he would live forever. What happened? Umeid b'chatzi yamav. He died, as the Gemara says, at half his age, which is at a young age. Bottom line is he dies a young man. Okay. So, v'haita ishto notela tefilav. So his wife would take his tefillin. Okay. What's with the tefillin? Long life is meant. He explains that the long life is mentioned regarding tefillin. Okay, if you put it on, you'll live a long life. So his wife takes his tefillin, bring them around to the houses of prayer and to the house of study. V'amra lehem, and said to the people there. Ketib Torah is written in the Torah. Ki hu chayecha v'yorechemecha, that this is your life and this is the length of your days. Baalei Shoshana harbe v'kara harbe, my husband, who learned much Mishnah and who learned much Torah. V'shimesh b'tamdei chachamim harbe, and spent much time serving Torah scholars. B'bnei ma mate b'chatzi yamav. Why did he die at an early age? Famous question. Here the guy's doing everything right, and yet he dies early. Why should he have died at such an early age? And the Gemara answers something very strange. V'lohaya adam machazira davar. Nobody would answer her anything. You tell me. Did they have an answer?
I don't know.
Well, take a guess.
That seems like their answer. Besides, like, this was meant done.
Besides, this was meant to be Gams with the Tova, fine. So, do they have a reason why a person would die early? If you would be a Talmudic scholar, and you would go through all the different permutations of what causes death. By the way, you could ask the same thing about the Holocaust or whatever we all want to ask about. Okay, you say the person died. So what is a normal thing to say? He died because of his sins. He died because of his sins. He did something wrong. And even if you're as good as Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our beloved teacher, he also made a mistake. He also sinned. And therefore, that's why he died. That's why he never made it into Mitzrayim. Into Eretz Yisrael. So if somebody as great as Moshe died, so certainly this person, regardless of what he's learning, regardless of what it is, he must have had some sin. And at his level, it must have been what did him in, right? Easy to say. Done. You gave him a reason. Have a good day. Go on with life, and let the woman grieve. You gave her a reason. They don't do that. V'lohaya adam machazir davar. Nobody would say a thing to her. So if you look, if you're number one, our school gives a Talmudic answer. They could not answer that his reward was reserved for the world to come, because the verse you quoted, namely, what you said, what was the quote? I just quoted it. What she said. Is it not written in the Torah? Where that is your life and the length of your days. That they didn't answer her, but they could have said the verse you quoted, young lady, is for the world to come. That's the verse that gives you long life in the world to come. It's true that he did all these things, so he will have everlasting life, no problem. But they didn't answer that. Now you could answer her. They didn't want to embarrass her. Say that. I think a much simpler answer is you can't answer a question. You can't answer an answer. Okay? She wasn't really posing as a question. She was saying she's a grieving widow, and she's saying, wait a second, my husband did everything that is supposed to be working, and yet he died early. There's no rational reason, and therefore it's wrong. Well, you can't answer that. You can only be quiet at that point. You just you listen, you let her grieve, you let him or her grieve, and that's all you can do. There is no answer to that sort of a question. Okay, so that's number one. Now what happens, story goes on. Okay, so she's going with her tefillin, and by the way, they ask why tefillin. I mean, if I can find it really quickly. Where was it? I saw a whole answer for the tefillin. Once again, I can't find it when I'm looking. Oh, here it is. They wanted to say like this. First of all, what's your real question? So the Iyun Yakov says that when she said he learned a lot of Mishnah and he learned a lot of Torah and he served to Amich Chachamim, she was saying there was a strong rope here. It wasn't just one thing he did. He was doing three things. And when you have a rope of three strands, they don't quickly break. And then she says, and it's also possible, he said, for this reason, that she took with her the tefillin, which says that tefillin is you would tefillin on the head, tefillin on his arm, and tzitzis, that's another, and the mezuzah on the door. All of these she couldn't take. No, she can't take everything, right? She just takes the tefillin. And he says, saying again, the rope doesn't quickly break. Because why? So why did she take the tzitzis with her, or the mezuzah? Well, the tzitzis were buried with the guy, right? You get buried with the tzitzis, and the mezuzah is on the door. Okay, and so that's why she could only take his tefillin. But she really wanted. Her question really was, it doesn't make sense because he should have been, because of this string, as you were, that she had, it should have been lasting a long time. Okay? And so, then why did she take the tefillin? Why was she doing this? In order to awaken people to give him a good hesped, in order to give him good eulogy, to arouse them to do that, right? And so that's another reason that she was doing this. Okay, fine. That's going to the Iyun Yakov. So now let's go a little further with this. And he says, okay, now we're going to come to an answer, an interesting question, part of the story. Pa'amachat. So once I visited her, who was we visiting? Is either Eliyahu or the Tana Eliyahu. In other words, his school, he decides he's going to visit with the widow. Pa'amachat, the Darachti Etzla. One time I visited her. And she told me the whole story. Now, what happens is, this is not during the Shiva. This is later on. Okay? Again, that's why he's saying, one time I went to visit her. Okay, so it must have been a little bit later on. Now, this is also something too. When a person the later you go in the story, the further removed from the situation or the instance you are, the more rational you become. Okay, and the more you can listen to what's going to be said to you. I'm not going to say you can accept it, but it's very dangerous to give reasons for somebody's death. I wouldn't venture into that if I was have half a brain. I just don't venture in. No, certainly not these days, because people argue with you and to be very insulted. But nonetheless, we're dealing with people who apparently were really searching for truth. So Pam Achat, again, so one time I was by there, and she told me the whole story. Amartila, and I said to her, Biti, my daughter, B'mei nidutech mahu etzlech, during your days of nidus, in other words, when you were in nida, when you were in the menstrual cycle, what did he do with you? So what's the question? He says, once a nida begins to menstruate, she is biblically forbidden to her husband for 7 days. These days are reckoned from the beginning of her flow. Eliyahu asked this woman whether her husband engaged in any sort of intimacy with her during that 7-day period. Even forms of intimacy other than cohabitation are forbidden either under biblical or rabbinic law. So what does it mean, by the way, in terms of endearment? Terms of endearment mean I cannot go like this. I cannot take my cup and give this to her for her to take with her hand like this. I cannot do that. In other words, I can't pass. If she asks me for a telephone, I can't pass the telephone from hand to hand. Okay, you cannot do that. Is terms of endearment. She cannot open the bed for me. In other words, she could not put the sheet over so that I could get in easier, because again, that is terms of endearment. She cannot wash my face or put food in front. It used to be the old things, but you can't give a kiss on the cheek, can't give a kiss, period. Okay, you can't touch, you can't hold hands. All these things that go into it, because all those are terms of endearment. In other words, normally I would not hold a woman's hand, and by the way, I'm not talking about shaking. When you shake a person's hand, which is also, according to many people, forbidden, okay? I'm not going to argue on what's forbidden anymore. It certainly is, by many standards, forbidden, because they consider that derech chiba, terms of endearment. When I take somebody's hands, it's a term of endearment, okay? Male or female, you're making contact with another person. That is terms of endearment. When you're walking down the street, you may nod to somebody, but you certainly don't put your hand out every 2 seconds to shake everybody who's walking the street, because you don't want to be that close to them. You'll nod to show you're a human, I'm a human, and it's a nice thing. You may even say good morning, but that is even pushing it for some people, okay? Most people walk by you and not acknowledge your existence unless you bump into each other. Then you'll say, I'm sorry. But when you're walking on campus, when I'm walking in Walmart, when I'm walking, we don't start saying hi to everybody. We don't put our hands up. So again, if I see somebody I haven't seen, Shalom Aleichem, I stick my hand out to him. Her I wouldn't stick my hand out to him unless she puts it to me. But him, I'll stick my hand out. We'll shake it. It's very nice. No problem. Okay, that's the term of endearment. Now, that you're not allowed to do, kol b'chomer, certainly you're not holding my wife's hand when I'm walking down the street. Okay, when she's in nida. So he was asking, Leah was asking her, so what did your husband do with you when you were in nida? What should her answer be? Nothing. Great. Amrali, she said to me, Chas v'shalom. Afilu etzba b'katana lo nagabi. God forbid, he did not touch me, even on my little finger. Never touched me. No, not to sin. Sorry. How about he said, Bimei libuneich mahu esacha. During the days of your white clothing, what did he do with you? What does that mean? If you look at number 5, he says there is an 11-day span between a woman's menstrual periods, during which a discharge of uterine blood renders her a zava. That's the category she goes into. It means a flow. If during those 11 days she experiences a discharge of 3 consecutive days, she becomes a major zava. This is in contrast to a minor zava who experiences a discharge on only 1 or 2 consecutive days. A major zava is forbidden to her husband until she counts 7 clean days without discharge, and then immerses herself in the mikveh. These 7 days are known as the days of white clothing, because the zava would wear white clothing during that time to enable her to detect any discharge. If she wore colored clothing and she would bleed, you would not be able to see if it was blood or not. And by the way, there are different types of blood. You have uterine blood, you have blood from a cut. It's all coming from different places. And a person who is trained to look at these bloods would be able to know, and to this very day, knows what they are, and to tell you, is this a blood that we have to worry about, or a blood we do not have to worry about? In other words, once the uterine blood comes out, then the woman is back in a sort of cycle. If it's from a cut, a different shade of blood, that would be a different thing. Or if it's and there's different when you get into classes, you'll be able to when you get engaged. When you get engaged, you'll have to go to classes which will teach you the different halachas that go with it, and the rabbis will define the bloods that are acceptable, the bloods that are not, and so on and so forth. But like I said, somebody has to know it. You have to have shimush. You have to have apprenticeship in knowing what it is, and most people don't go through that. They bring it to the rabbi and say, Rabbi, what is it? Okay, and the rabbi, they bring it to, obviously they had to have training. Most people around here do not have that training. I also do not. Anyway, so he said, Other Rishonim maintain that this statement in the Braita pertains not to Zava but to a Nida. The Gemara Nida states that the daughters of Israel accepted upon themselves the stringency of counting 7 clean days at the conclusion of the regular Nida flow. Now that's also something important too. Today we all just go stringent and count basically 12 days. You have 5 days for the period, and then 7 days of the clean of the white day, the white days, if you will. Okay, that, and they'll wear the white underwear and so on and so forth to indicate to make sure there's no problem. During those days, we're not allowed to do anything. You have to treat it like nida. Okay, so even though the nida is over, the real nida is over 12 against. If somebody is going more than 5 days, 7 days, whatever, so they really should start going to the doctor. If there's too much blood, you have to go to the doctor to figure out what's going on. But if it's just a normal menstrual cycle, the majority of people, as far as I know, it would end within 5 days. And that's the trickle, okay? It's not even the 7th. Now you're after the 5 and you're in the 7. So now what happens? So what do you do in those days? What did he do with you? Achalimi, he ate with me. V'shatemi, and he drank with me. V'yashanimi, and he slept with me in the same bed. V'kera basar, without clothing. Literally with closeness of flesh line. V'lo alta datu al devar acher, but he did not even think about the other thing. In other words, we didn't have relations. But we ate together, we drank together, and we slept together without clothing. Fine. You want to ask?
No, I heard basar, and isn't that flesh?
Yes, flesh. Yes.
The lack of clothing.
Yes. Keruv basar is closeness of, right. And I said to her, Baruch hamakom sheharago. Wow, there's something to say, girl. Blessed is God who killed him. Baruch Hashem, God got him. Why? Why is it good that God did it? Shelo nasa panim la Torah, because your husband did not show respect towards the Torah. Shaharei amra Torah, because the Torah says, V'elisha benidat tum'ata lo tikrav. You shall not approach a woman in her time of unclean separation. Hashem did not show favoritism. Why would Hashem show favoritism to? Why would you think Hashem would show favoritism to this person? Because he was learning, he was doing everything, right? So here he goes. He explains that the scholar erred by not expounding the verse cited by the Braita correctly, or by not being sufficiently scrupulous and avoiding transgression. Alternatively, the Sfas Emes explains this to mean, for God did not show favoritism on behalf of the Torah. That is, God did not treat the scholar leniently in view of his great accomplishments in the study of Torah. Rather, Hashem took him to task for his lapse in this matter. This rendering is supported by the text in Tano de Beliau when it says Baruch Hamakom Sha'aragu She'en Lefandav Maso Panim. He changes it instead of Nasa Panim to Maso Panim. Blessed is God who killed him, for there is no favoritism before Hashem. And then he explains something very important. Until why is she? He says the Torah says Yalisha benidat tum'ata lo tikrav, that a woman in her nida status you should not approach. Well, how long is she in her nida status? 5 days. We're now talking about the 7 days, and we're only talking about a rabbinic injunction. If she would, bleed for 3 days in those 11 days, so then it's biblically she's has to bring the korban, so on and so forth, no problem. But if it's less than that, it's all rabbinics. So what are you picking on me for? Okay, and how can you use this verse? So he says something that's very, very important. Until a nida or zava immerses herself after the prescribed number of days have passed, she is biblically forbidden to her husband, period. In other words, until the woman goes to mikvah, she's nida. To this, in other words, so you have a girl who, when she hits 12, or a little before that, but whatever, 12, she has her first, at that point, she'll have her first menstrual cycle. Okay? It used to be in the old days that you would go to the mikveh after that, because people were very concerned about Tumah and Tahara. So when originally these young girls from 12 on would be going to the mikveh every month. Okay. What happened was, in order to stop people from having premarital sex, the rabbis made a decree that no, until you get married, you don't go to the mikveh. Okay, that's what happened. Now, furthermore, when you have a mikveh, when you finish your menstrual cycle, you 5 days, you would see there's nothing there, you would go to the mikveh. And then if you would see something else, you'd have to start figuring, do I have to count, or don't I have to count, or what do you have to do? In other words, the 11 days. Okay? So the person would be going to the mikveh. The point is, until the person goes to the mikveh, in other words, so now a girl is 12, and she is a nida, diaraita from the Torah's point of view, until she goes to mikveh. But she won't go to mikveh until she's about to get married. So that means she's a nida from 12 to 18, biblically. 18, assuming she's getting married at 18. Okay? If she's 20, 23, 20, 28, 50, she's been in biblical nida that long. Okay? That's what happens when if you don't go to the mikveh, you're in biblical. This is not a thing to play with. Okay, that's why we really stay away from everything. That's why you want to stay away from the shaking, about all these terms of endearment. You don't want to get involved because you're talking about biblical prohibitions here. Unlike if it's just, pardon the language, but just rabbinic. Okay? So that's a very important thing to remember. She says, hence during that, so now, since she didn't go to the mikvah, she's biblically forbidden to her husband. Hence, during that time, the couple may not engage in intimate acts such as sleeping together unclothed. Ramban, he says, proofs from this brighter that such behavior is not biblically prohibited, for if it were, Eliyahu could have simply said, Baruch HaMakom Sha'arago Sha'aval Divrei Torah. Blessed is Hashem who killed him, for he transgressed the words of the Torah. Rather, Eliyahu said, Lo nasa panim the Torah. He did not show respect to the Torah. He did not raise his face to the Torah, which denotes violation of a rabbinic decree designed to protect the Torah. And so the Megillah Esther, it's a commentary, deflects Ramban's proof by explaining the bright in accordance with the alternative explanation cited in the previous note. Okay. The commentators grapple with the problem of how an accomplished scholar, such as that described in the Braita, could have transgressed this prohibition. Okay? You guys never heard of this, so it would be no big deal for you to transgress it, right? You you ever hear of this? No. Okay, but you haven't learned Torah as much as this guy. This guy was learning day and night, serving Talmidei Chachamim. I mean, there's basics. So how could he have made a mistake? It is highly improbable that he would have been unaware of the biblical law requiring a zava to count 7 clean days and immerse herself before she becomes married to her husband. In light of this difficulty, the Rishonim explain that the Gemara refers not to a zava who must count 7 clean days by biblical law, but to a nida who counts 7 clean days as a matter of stringency. They add that a nida would immerse herself once after the first 7 days reckoned by the beginning of her flow have passed, 7 days, okay. And that the point, at that point she would be permitted to her husband under biblical law, right? So after 5, they're saying 7, fine, well, I'll give in to our score for this. Then after ascertaining that no discharge has occurred for 7 consecutive days, she would immerse herself a second time. So the first time she went to the mikvah, I'm out of biblical nida. Okay, she had to check herself. No blood? Boom. The husband in this narrative had intimate contact with his wife between the first and second immersions. He mistakenly thought that since she is permitted at that time, according to biblical law, he did not have to distance herself from it. That's a misunderstanding. For that was, he didn't show respect to the rabbis. In other words, it's your job, it's all of our jobs, to know what the halacha is, what biblical law is, and what rabbinic law is. Just because I know the difference between what is rabbinic and what is biblical, does not mean that I can break rabbinic. Okay? I'll give you an example. I know that the Torah forbids me from from cooking a kid in his mother's milk, with all the permutations that go with that. But as far as the separation, 1 hour, 3 hours, 6 hours, 20 hours, 24 hours, what do I care? Okay, all these separations that we have, or the separation between milk of our dishes. Well, we can't put in the same dishwasher and all these things. Even though I could convince you, and I've seen these things, that that you really could use the dishwasher for everything at the same time. Okay, the rabbis have said we shouldn't. I should respect, instead of doing what I know, even if I can rationalize everything, I should not follow my own rationalization. I should rather give in to what the rabbis have said, and say that they had made a fence for a specific reason. Maybe I know it, maybe I don't know it, and I should just trust them. Okay, if something would happen, if I would, by the way, this would also work is, let's say somebody put my milchik stuff into my fleishik. There's only one dishwasher, so it's usually a fleish. You're going to usually use a meat, dishwasher for meat, because most people eat the meat mostly, and the cereal, it's nothing. You wash a couple of bowls out. What's the big deal? But now what happens is somebody puts the milchik stuff with the fleishik, and now I see it. Oh, do I have to throw it out? Assuming it's ceramic, the answer is no. No, it's really, you can get away with that because the original cleansing wasn't there. There wasn't hot water hitting it at the same time. You can find your way out of that. Unlike l'chadchila, in the first instance, to put everything together. That I would say no to. Yeah.
Is that like the example, the past one is something about the lamp? You shouldn't.
Correct. Same thing. The lamp, when you shouldn't move it, it's all rabbinics. Because maybe if you move it, you may cause it to burn more. Again, that's why he said, the rabbis are great. And they make rules. Just because I know better, or I think I know better, it doesn't mean I should break it. But again, that's what I'm saying. We have a responsibility to know what's biblical and to know what is rabbinic. We have that responsibility. Because not everything is biblical. It doesn't carry the same weight. So I have to know that. I'll give another example, the kippah. Right? The kippah we wear a kippah. It's nowhere in the Torah to wear a kippah. Absolutely nowhere. So in the Shulchan Aruch, it says the minhag is to do something. Fine. So we wear the kippah. Now, is it, as you would say, should you die over this? Should you die over this? Somebody tells you to take the kippah off? No, the answer is no. If you have to go to work and they don't want you to wear the head covering, okay, so you go into, if you're a lawyer and you're going to defend somebody and you're going to Bible country where they don't like Jews, okay? And the truth is, I think certain names they know are Jewish, so I don't think it's going to help you. But okay, but if somebody doesn't know the guy's Jewish, so you don't wear the kippah, they would argue by wearing the kippah, I'm going to lose the trial for my client. So I'm fine. There are heterim. There's leniencies for these sort of things. It's not even rabbinic. It's a minhag. So again, I have to even know that. Where does these things fit, and how far can I push it? Okay, I have to know that. Again, it's not a biblical thing. If it's biblical, you can't do anything about it. It's done. It's over. So that's really what's going on here. That's how they defend him. They say, and by the way, again, when it's rabbinic, doesn't mean I can break when I want to. It means if there are extenuating circumstances, then I can look at that and say, what should I do? And then you ask somebody who's, by the way, you should never make the decision yourself, because you are what we call nogea badavar. You are connected to it. So when I'm connected to it, I'm going to rationalize everything. I will rationalize whatever I have to get that job done, which is why you go to somebody else and say, okay, based upon, I know this, this is what I'd like to think the halacha is, am I correct? Now, if you do that, so then, fine. If you get somebody to agree with you who's not nogea badavar, not connected, then, and that person is a trusted, scholarly, trusted halachic person, fine, then you can go with that. Otherwise, you shouldn't. And it says now, Ki ata Rav Dimi Amar. So when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylon, he said, Matechada Havai. It was a matter of sleeping on the same bed which he thought was permitted. And it says in 10, the only physical connection between them was that they shared the same bed. And so Rashi says the bed was so wide that they did not actually touch each other. The scholar mistakenly thought that sleeping together in this manner was permitted. So apparently he had a king-size bed. Huh?
Bigger than that.
No, king-size is gigantic. King-size, you're thinking of queen-size. You have twins.
Oh, okay. Next I thought was.
The next one is a queen, and then the next one is a king. Okay. King-size, they're gigantic. You don't have to, and maybe a little bigger than that, but king size is gigantic. You don't, you wave to the person in king size. Okay. Nice big bed. So he says, B'marva Amri, in the west, or in Eretz Yisrael, they reported that Amr of Yitzchak bar Yosef, that he said, Sinar mafsik beino levena, she wore, as they're saying, translating knickers, or a type of short pants, that interposed between him and her. In other words, they slept with clothes on. So they slept with clothes on. Again, you're not going to engage in sexual relations if I have clothes on. That's at least a thought process. And so that would be why they would have thought that they could do it. And all these are rationalizations as to what's going on, to understand, why Eliyahu would say, Baruch Hashem, that Hashem killed him. Right? But really, it's an interesting thing, because here we see that she wanted a reason that somebody died. Originally, again, they didn't say anything. Then she was when Eliyahu went to visit her later, and she's still talking about it. So now, normally you wouldn't think you're going to keep talking, right? But now he wants to say, okay, enough. Let's explore the case. Now we're rational. Let's explore, what do you do in this? What do you do in there? Because, you cut his life off halfway, so must be a reason. Let's figure this out. If she would have said no, so the story wouldn't have gone anywhere. It would have been, okay, so we don't know. Comes a little 12, if you will. But even with this story, it ultimately comes to, he should, because of who he was, that's why he was cut off. Not because he sinned. He didn't do anything. He didn't break any biblical thing here. According to all opinions, he didn't break biblical because biblical would be, you're going to have relations with her. Okay, so he's not doing that, but he slept in the same bed or whatever the case is going to be. Again, you can eat with your wife. You can't eat off the same plate. In other words, if you would have one plate, a communal plate,
okay.
so you're going to eat off that plate, right? So you shouldn't do that. You should have, and you shouldn't drink from the same cups.
Like a serving plate idea? Or you actually take...
No, you ever go to a Chinese restaurant?
Well,
Or
each one has their own,
Right, so you have a poo-poo platter or something, so everybody's taking the same plate.
Yeah,
So what's like a serving thing? So what's the concern there? That you're all, the biggest concern is you're going to eat off the person's plate. You're going to say, in other words, you're sitting with your wife, okay? Multiple times. You're married, okay? Multiple times. So you're with Rivka, and Rivka has something on her plate, and you're eyeing what she has on her. She has a great. What food do you really enjoy? Something you really enjoy. No. One thing. Come on.
Oreo?
What?
Oreo?
Oreo cookies?
One or two.
Okay, fine. Okay. She has an Oreo cookie on her that she took a bite from.
Oh.
Okay, she has an Oreo cookie she took a bite from, and you're eyeing that because you really want. That's the last one, and she says to you, "Avi, do you like my Oreo cookie?" And you say yes. That the fact that she bit it doesn't matter to you because you want that Oreo cookie. And you say yes. And she says, okay, here, you take it. That would be usher. Normally it would be permitted. Okay, she can, if she wants to, she can give up her plate. But it would be usher during Nida or all the time she has to go to the mikveh. 100% usher to do that. Okay, if there's one on the plate in the middle of the table, that's not a problem because everybody's taking from that. But if it's her plate, you can't, once she puts on her plate, it's forbidden. And she can't take it from your plate while you're looking. Oh, I know it's while you're there. If you're going to keep inch, you shouldn't do it from there. You certainly also you can't drink from the same glasses. Again, these are all terms of endearment. In a normal situation, you're not going to drink or eat from somebody else's mouth. I hope you don't anyway. Okay, if you do, it's pretty sick. But okay, that's my own opinion.
Share a bottle of water in the car. That's my family.
Well, the truth is, what is it?
Share a bottle of water in the car. So if they don't want to drink,
Yeah, I could never do that. I could never do that. No, I could never do that. But I know that when people, smokers, they'll light a cigarette, and they'll give it to that person. To me, that's disgusting. I mean, I don't like smoking it, period. But but that's sort of mishigas where you're lighting it. Or why don't you just chew the food and give it to them too? Leave me alone. But that's what I'm saying. That's all these things are terms of endearment. Okay, so you would think that you could do certain things. The answer is no, you shouldn't have done it. I just always said, but like I said, the biggest line to me that was Lo haya adam echazir davar. Nobody would answer. Not that they couldn't answer. They didn't answer. Okay, so now we go on to 13b1. 13b1, which we're on anyway. Okay, where was I going? No, so that can't be. 13. Yeah.
Would that also include like getting a bag of chips at the grocery store, at the gas station, and like sharing it with the car? So if you share it with your wife during the meal, that would.
Could I share chips with her? The answer is you'd have to pour into your own bag, and she would have to pour into hers. Because what happens, you both touch at the same time. That would create the problem. Okay. What you're trying to avoid is touching. Okay, that's the major thing. Yeah, so now we're on 13b2. And we're at the top of where it says the Gemara discusses Hananiah ben Chizkiah's accomplishments. Okay, so it says Tana Rabbanan, rabbis learned the Braita, Mikatav Megillah Ta'anit. Who wrote the book? Who wrote the Megillah's Tainus? What is Megillah's Tainus? So he tells you Megillah's Tainus is literally the scroll of fasts. We're on 13b2. Okay, and it was compiled toward the end of the second temple. It lists dates of the year on which fasting is prohibited. It's interesting. They call it the Megillah of fasting, but it's the days that fasting is prohibited because those days were declared minor festivals on account of miraculous salvations that occurred on them. It is known as Megillah because at the time of its compilation, no halachic works were written due to the prohibition against committing oral law to writing. However, the list of minor festivals was issued in writing, so that the public would be able to remember them. It was therefore known as the Megillah or a scroll. Later, sometime after the destruction of the temple, when times were laden with troubles and sufferings, these festivals were abolished, and consequently the prohibition against fasting was abrogated. According to many Rishonim, only personal fasts are permitted on these dates, but public fasts are still not allowed. The existing editions of Megillah's Tainus contain 35 dates, but it is evident that some of them are later additions, even added even as late as after the destruction of the temple. Fine, yeah.
Megillah means fast or scroll?
Megillah means scroll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we completely lose all those holidays? We still know what they are?
We know what they are, but we don't. Well, we know many of them, not all of them, but we don't use them.
No, observe, right?
Because again, what happened was, the bottom line is, if we would follow all of them, we would never hear Tachanun again. Thanks God we had a lot of miracles that happened to us. Okay. So what happened? So it says, Amru, they said, Hananiah ben Chizkiah v'Yishiyato. It was Hananiah ben Chizkiah and his colleagues, and he explains, who lived approximately 100 years before the destruction of the second temple. Okay, so then what happens? And why do they put this down? Listen to what the language is again. The language is so beautiful here. Shayu mechavabin and etzarot. They cherished the troubles.
So that you know the good.
Now, well, say it again?
So that you recognize the good.
You can recognize the good, right. So the simple thing is they cherished the troubles that befell them. When they were miraculously delivered from their troubles, they record the dates so they could be celebrated as holidays. That's what happened. Okay, so Rashi said, the Maharshal explains this whole thing. He says they cherished the troubles that befell them because they understood that they were fully deserving of them. Thus, when Hashem delivered them from their hardships, they were appreciative of His deliverance. If, on the other hand, they had thought that the hardships were unwarranted, they would not have felt obligated to thank Hashem for releasing them. Okay, so they're recognizing again that it was their sins, like all of our problems are always our sins. So if that's the case, Hashem caused me to do teshuvah. If I've done teshuvah and now I get freedom from that sort of situation, now I can make a holiday from that too. So that's what it means. They cherished the sorrows. So Amar Rav and Shimon ben Gamliel, Afanu Mechavin Sarot. Rabbi Gamliel said, we also cherish our troubles and would like to record the dates of our deliverance. Aval not mana said, but what can we do? For if we were to come and write down all the days we were delivered from troubles, in Anu must peakim, we would not manage to celebrate all them all. It's impossible. Okay, so now he says, what happened? This is the Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel who lived in the second generation after the destruction of the temple, 5 generations after Hanani. In Rabbi Shimon's time, trouble abounded and thus miraculous deliverances from them were increased. Rabbi Shimon claimed that if he would initiate a holiday for every miracle, every single day of the year would have to be celebrated as a holiday, not a practical proposition. Every single day, let's have a simcha. Okay, it's not going to happen. So he says, and furthermore, Devar Achir, another reason why we don't write down all the dates of our deliverances. Ein shotet nifka. An imbecile does not get attacked. An imbecile does not get attacked. Why? What's going on there? He says, an imbecile does not feel attacked because he is unaware of the dangers that surround him. Similarly, said Rabbi Shimon, we are so overwhelmed with hardships that we are numb to the troubles that befall us. However, hence, we do not appreciate our deliverance from them. Okay, if I don't know I'm being attacked, I don't get it. It's only today, it's interesting that today, and it started 20, 30 years ago, I guess, when we started with politically correct speech, right, or PC. Well, that before the personal computer took over PC, but it used to be politically correct speech. So that was the Goyim's way of training people how not to speak Lashon Hara. We started with Lashon Hara. They called it PC. Fine. Okay. The point is that we became very sensitive. Not to insult anybody, not to speak disparagingly about anybody, right? So, it's so much so that today it seems that I have a right not to be insulted. That's how they're saying it, right? I think that's how they even call it. I have a right not to be insulted. Something like that. And so now if I say, what was it? Somebody said something. They used about armor. What did they say about armor? They made a statement.
Oh, find a chink in the armor.
Find a chink in the armor, right. Find a chink in the armor. And so they said, you insulted Chinese. And now, first of all, you have to know that Chinese were called chinks. That's the first thing. Most people don't know that Chinese, that's a derogative term for Chinese for chink. Unless you're going to watch MASH or something. I don't even know if it's a MASH. But it's so far removed from what we think about today that is, who knows these words? You don't know them. Again, unless you run in those circles. But the guy had to apologize. I think they lost their job over that. Because society was so sensitive to that. I don't even think the Chinese knew they were talking about. Okay, but the point is that we have to be so very careful. It goes the other way. So he would say, I would be interested to know, would Rabbi Shimon Gamliel say that that's the imbecile? Who's the imbecile in that case? But the bottom line is, an imbecile, if I'm used to being bullied, I'm not going to recognize when I'm being bullied anymore. going to ignore it. I'm going to say, oh, that's just playing. That's really what he's talking about. And then Devar Acher, another one, Ein Basar Hamet Margish Be'izmal. The flesh of a dead person does not feel the pain of the scalpel. She says, the multitudes of hardships have rendered us insensible to our troubles as the dead bodies to pain. In other words, we're being hit so many times, what's one more hit? So that's another reason that Rabbi Shem Gamliel does not write down all the days they've been saved, because you become desensitized to everything. So the Gemara says, wait a second, you just said that the flesh of a dead person doesn't feel pain. And is it so? Worms are painful to the dead as pins to the flesh of the living. Shneimar, it says in the Torah, but his flesh will be pained over itself, and his soul will mourn over itself. So you just said it doesn't feel pain, yet we see it does feel pain. How is that possible? And he says some commentators take this statement literally, that the flesh of a dead person feels pain like a living body. Tosu Yom Tov in Pirkei Avot holds that the flesh of a dead body has no feeling at all. That the intent of our Gemara is that the soul of the deceased is pained by the degradation caused to the body by the worms. Oh, so that's an interesting way to look at it. Job, so the second verse, according to the aforementioned Tosu Yom Tov, the translation is, his flesh on him will be destroyed by the worms, and his soul will mourn over this. This follows here. Okay, fine. The aim of this, let me finish. And Basar made Shabachai Margish. Some say the Brisa means that the dead flesh of a living person does not feel a scalpel. So he said, do not read in the Brisa Basar Hamet, which means the flesh of the dead, but rather Basar Hamet, which means dead flesh. Dead flesh on a living person caused by a wound or a burn does not feel any sensation to the scalpel.
Scar tissue.
Yeah, scar tissue.
But
Say it again?
the soul mourns when the worms eat it, but the body doesn't speak.
The body doesn't feel it, the body's dead.
Right.
Right. Okay, so a little more. I just want to finish and we can go to the next one later. So Am Rav Yehuda Amarav. Baram, so Rav Yehuda said the name of Rav. Baram Zachor Toa Ish Latov. In truth, the man is to be remembered favorably. V'chanani ben Chizkiah Shemo, and Chanani ben Chizkiah is his name. Malehu, because if it were not for him, Nignaz. Sefer Yechezkel, the book of Yechezkel, would have been concealed. Shay Devarav Sotran Devrei Torah, because his words apparently contradicted the words of the Torah. Ma'asa, so what did Hananiah do? Helu lo shalosh me'ot garve shemen. They brought up to him 300 barrels of oil. V'yashav be'aliyah u'derashan. He sat in the upper chamber and expounded the verses of Ezekiel so as to reconcile them with the Torah. So if you look at 31 to 4. Certain laws in Ezekiel apparently contradict the laws of the Torah. For example, we find in Ezekiel any carcass or torn animal or foul or livestock the Kohanim may not eat. The implication is that non-Kohanim may eat the nevela or trefa, which is in contradiction to the Torah. Another example of Ezekiel states that on the first day of the first month, Nisan, a bullock should be brought as a sacrifice, and in verse 20 it stated that the same sacrifice be brought on the 7th of the month of Torah, and mentions no such sacrifice on the 7th of Nisan. So, okay, how can Ezekiel start making up his own rules? And so now what they did was they brought up 300 barrels of oil. Why? To maintain his lamp and also his food. He says sometimes 300 is used hyperbolically. Hyperbolically. I'm reading it right. Right. At any rate, the story indicates that a prodigious amount of time and work was invested in trying to find solutions to the problems posed by the book. He secluded himself in an upper chamber because higher stories are more eerie and therefore more conducive to serious study, which is also interesting. That you would think that the higher you go, I think he only went to the upper, to the attic. It wasn't like he was climbing a mountain. Okay, and then now 34 answers the questions. Okay, he says the Ephraim, because the Gemara doesn't. So the aforementioned prohibitions on nevela and treif directed specifically to Kohanim are reconciled by the Gemara in Menachot, and he says, in truth, the prohibition applies to all Jews because it was necessary to repeat it to Kohanim because we find that the prohibition against nevela is on occasion weighed for the Kohanim. Thus, that is, in the case of a bird brought as a sin offering, the special manner of the slaughter known as malika would normally render the bird nevela. Nevertheless, Kohanim were permitted to eat it. One might therefore assume that the prohibition of nevela and treifa does not apply to Kohanim. For this reason, Ezekiel repeated specifically to Kohanim. So that's how he did the first one, right? But by the way, malika is you take your thumb, and you go like that. What? This thumb. And you break the neck of the right. Whatever. Only the Kohen do it, but he has that here. Goes like that. Okay. The nail is sharp, right? And so, no, but that's nevela for everybody else, right? If you were taking, you're still nevela, and yet we had you killed it improperly. So yeah, that's how we have to kill it for that particular thing, and the Kohanim could eat it. So you're going to say, oh, so if you can eat that, maybe you can eat other nevela. No, Ezekiel says no, you can't do that. You can't go that far. You can only eat that particular because the Torah said so. Okay, we'll stop there.